Thank you so much for being here and supporting season 3 of the podcast. It has definitely been a challenge to figure out how to do this on my own. And I just wanted to say thank you for giving me grace as I have figured out how the podcast fits into my schedule now that I have Carley Wellness and I am a nutritionist and a health coach, and then I'm teaching at a yoga studio. It has definitely been some trial and error figuring out what platforms that I wanted to use going forward and how each of these aspects of my career fit into my day-to-day life. I've been craving balance in this season, and so I've been trying to be intentional with that while also keeping up with my responsibilities, and it's been a little bit more difficult than I thought. But I finally feel like I'm coming out the other side of it and have a really good schedule and routine and feel like I'm finally on top of things, which is exciting. And so one of the things that I'm really excited to bring back is this intro before the intro, where I can give you a little update on what's going on in my life, or just express my gratitude for you all, or promote our partners. And this week, I wanted to both express gratitude and promote the main partner of the show, which is Carley Wellness, which it seems a little bit silly. And I honestly feel a little, I don't know what the right word is, but a little weird promoting myself as the host. But the show wouldn't be possible without Carley Wellness. So why not promote it? Another reason why I wanted to highlight Carley Wellness as a partner for the show is that in this episode, my guest this week, Carley, who is someone I have known since middle school, talks about her journey to becoming a owner of a yoga studio and starting a newspaper. But one thing in particular she talks about is how she was experiencing burnout and spreading herself very thin, and actually got a test done, a saliva test done for her adrenals to see what was going on with her stress hormone. And she found out that she was really burning the candle at both ends and needed to make some changes. And I run a saliva test for your adrenals at Carley Wellness. And I'm not sure if many of you know that that's a service that I offer or something that I can do for my clients. And so I wanted to share a little bit more about that test and talk about what working with me as a client could look like if you are interested in having the Dutch adrenal test run. So reading from the Dutch test website, the Dutch adrenal provides free cortisol patterns that parallel saliva with the addition of metabolite measurements for an improved marker for total cortisol production. The test includes your daily free cortisol and cortisone patterns. And the way that it finds the patterns is you actually do the saliva test at 4 separate times throughout the day to measure the hormones throughout your day. It also looks at your cortisol and cortisone metabolites and your DHEAs. So if you are like, what does all of that mean? Please book a discovery call. I'd be happy to break down stress hormones for you, what a Dutch test looks like for you, and what working with me could look like to help you decide if you wanted to have this test run and work together. The way that I support clients right now, this is going to change by the end of the year, but the way that it looks right now is that you book this free discovery call with me. If you decide, yes, we want to work together, you would book an initial intake session, fill out some paperwork. During that session, we would go over your health history, your current habits, your goals, anything else that you want to discuss. I'll ask you a ton of questions to figure out the best ways that I can support you. And then from there, we can run specific tests. You can meet with your PCP to have specific blood labs run. And we can start working after the intake. Before you get any of these results back, we can start having follow-up sessions to really lay a good foundation for you and help you start to reach these goals. And then once we get the results back from the tests that we run, we can get really, really specific and nitty gritty about the exact interventions that we should be doing. The typical length of a client for me is 6 months, and I like to meet with clients bi-weekly, so twice a month. I find that this helps people stay accountable while also having time to implement different interventions to see if you like them, if they're having a significant improvement for you, and how we can tweak and make adjustments there. So if you are interested in working with me, like I said, please book a free discovery call using the link in these show notes. I would love to chat with you more about what you're looking for. And if you are interested in running a Dutch adrenal test because you think you might be burnout and spreading yourself too thin, I'm here for you. So with that, enjoy the episode. Hey everyone, welcome back to Connecting the Dots. Today I have a really fun guest on the show. I've known her since I was 10, 11, 12, a young person, and it's been really fun to see how our journeys have separated and brought us back together through our mutual love of wellness and yoga, and just excited to have her on. Carley, would love for you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me. So I'm Carley. I am a writer and a yoga teacher, and I'm the founder of The Retreat, which is kind of two things. Half of it is in-person women getaways, and then the other half is a monthly print subscription newspaper surrounding wellness and spirituality that is on a mission to help people disconnect to reconnect. And then I'm also, not for long, but a studio owner. I opened a studio in my town 2 years ago, and then I actually just sold it, and I'll be done that era of my life on July 1st, which is sad, but it's bittersweet.
Yeah, well, I'm really impressed that you have been able to open a studio and sell it. You are clearly super successful, and I can't wait to hear more of your journey and how you got to this place now. And just wanted to say congratulations, because that's a huge win and a milestone. We are starting this season with every episode with the same opening question, which is, what is a daily ritual or habit of yours?
Okay, so none of my days really look the same, but I would say the number one thing that is the most simple thing that I always do, and this is not going to be exciting or profound in any way, but it's lemon water. I do it every single day, and I just feel so good after doing it, like an entire mason jar with an entire lemon squeezed in. And if I get that done, then I feel like I have a good start to my day. And so it's that and journaling. Like I'm a Dear Diary girl till the day I die. If I don't journal, then I don't really I probably like didn't have I don't know, but I always journal and I always have my lemon water.
Those are great habits. Have you been journaling for a really long time?
Yeah, I have diaries since my mom still has diaries in my closet at home. I have this entire box of all of my diaries. Um, which, yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's just something that keeps me really present and grounded. And I love to go look back at all of my journals and see like how everything has evolved. Because even when I was little, like I talk the same way in my journals that I talk now. So it's something that I love and I cherish, and I don't ever foresee myself not doing.
Yeah, I love that. And it's cool that it's been a practice that has been grounding for you since you were a kid and that you've been able to continue through your life. Because I think there's a lot of things that we do as children that fall to the wayside as we get older, or on the other end of things, as we get older and we learn about mindfulness and the wellness world. And then sometimes journaling or meditation can become things that check a box instead of using it for presence and purpose and grounding. And so I think it's really special that you've been able to utilize this method of mindfulness for your life. And how cool to be able to look back on those milestones and events and see where your head was at in different phases.
Yeah, totally. Although I'll say like I have all of my ones from when I was little, I probably once a year will throw out like 5 of them, because I remember when I was living in Denver, and I just had 7 journals, and I looked through them, and it made me like kind of depressed about, like, I was kind of going through some shit, and I was like, I don't really want to look at this when I'm older ever again. So I was like, I'm just gonna throw it out, and that's how I'll kind of like cut the cord with that. And it
Yeah.
feels like let all of that baggage go. So it's kind of like this physical release almost. So I have like the happy ones that's kind of cute. Where I'm like, oh, when I'm little, like, oh, I was always meant to be doing this or this because I always wrote about it. But then there's like that part in college and right after college when I was like, you know what? She was moving through stuff. I don't need to hold on to this anymore. So I'll just throw it out.
Well, also beautiful because I feel like sometimes people don't have that physical representation of letting things go or have that time and space to really be like, okay, I processed this, I'm done. So, how beautiful is that? Even finding purpose in the pain.
Yeah, totally.
And I know that we've talked a little bit about it already, but what do you feel like journaling brings you to your day?
Well, presence first and foremost. It's if I don't do it in the beginning of the day, at the end of the day when I'm doing it, it's like the first time I check in with myself. Like I realize I have not checked in with myself all day today until I start writing about something. And then I mean, I love the practice of morning pages. That's what I feel like I do and I've been doing even before I learned about it. But it really is like you don't know what's going to come out. It's like this stream of consciousness writing, and I allow myself to have like at least 30 minutes of doing it because at that point things are coming up and coming out that I was like, whoa, where did that even come from? And
Yeah,
it also allows a lot of creativity for me. If I just dump everything out there, then I have more space to become creative and focus on things that are like exciting and new instead of letting everything ruminate in my mind. If I put it on the page, then it's there and it's done. And now I can focus on what I actually want to do and how I actually want to spend my time.
that's awesome. And I know that you said in your intro that you are a writer. So, how, and you kind of have alluded to it, but how do you feel like the journaling can potentially make you a better writer?
Oh God. Well, if you read my journal, it's absolute, it's shit. It's not like it would ever be published or like this could be like really cool to riff on later. It's literally me just like the worst things that I say to myself, the worst things that I say about like what's going on in my life. So I don't think that you would ever read my journal and be like, this girl's a writer. And sometimes I even have time saying, I have a hard time saying like, oh, I'm a writer. Like it feels a little bit, uh, I suppose imposter syndrome, but I'm also really honest about where I am and like how much of a beginner I am in things.
Yeah,
But yeah, I guess it helps me mainly be really creative because once I dump everything out that's taking space up in my mind, I have more space for things to flow through. So that I think would be the number one thing.
yeah, I love it. And I know that you started your yoga practice. How did you find yoga that eventually led you to wanting to open a studio?
I don't, okay. So I found yoga in high school. You know how we had to have like a certain number of sports credits to graduate?
Yeah.
Okay, I could not. I tried to do track. I like slept through my meets. I just wasn't sporty. Like when I was on field hockey, like, do you remember I did like the time? I was so nervous about ever going in the game. Like I think I went in the game one time or whatever, but I was mainly, I would consider myself really unathletic and someone who didn't enjoy team sports.
Yeah.
And not because I didn't like being on a team. I love that aspect.
Yeah.
But sports in general just felt super intense to me. So I had asked if I could do yoga instead, thinking like my initial thoughts of yoga was like lean, cute clothes, like everything's easy type deal.
Yeah.
And they said yes. So I started doing yoga after school at this really cute studio by my house. It had like prayer flags outside. It was like this 1700, this building from the 1700s, like really cute. And I started going there and I absolutely hated it. I hated it. It was so hard, number one. Like I remember being in like Warrior 2 or something, and my thigh was like killing me. It was burning. And then Shavasana was brutal. I could not lay there. I was just like, all of these thoughts are just like coming across my mind, whatever, whatever. And so I had a really hard time with it. I thought it was kind of bullshit. Like the teacher would always be like, and let all of these thoughts like float away like clouds and don't think about anything else and let your mind calm. And I was just like, this is such bullshit. But I kept going because I had to. Slowly but slowly, I started to really love it because I noticed like it made me a lot less anxious. It gave me like a pause because I mean, I'm going through puberty, so like my hormones were raging. And so I would always, have challenging fights with like my mom and my parents and stuff. And it kind of gave me this moment of like awareness and pause. And so I noticed how it was kind of rippling out into every other aspect of my life. And that's not to say that it was like an immediate cure all because I still dealt with anxiety and depression and shyness in big groups for the next, I don't know, decade. I mean, still sometimes now, but it was so profound that I would notice when I wasn't doing it how things were kind of panning out worse. And I mainly was doing asana in the beginning. And then I just kept up with the practice all the way up until 2021 is when I did my yoga teacher training. And I guess it was either 2021 or 2020. I did my yoga teacher training with no thought at all of being a teacher, opening up a studio. I was living in a small town where I am right now, and I just wanted to connect with some like-hearted people and meet some friends and deepen my practice and my study that way. And then, of course, I mean, I don't know if this has been your experience or whatever, but I fell in love with teaching. My mentor who taught me is a really good storyteller. And I love telling stories, theming things, and I fell in love with it that way. So the way that I teach is basically I always have like some tale, some myth, some story that I weave into the entire flow of practice. And I really fell in love with it that way. So I was like, I'm definitely going to teach. The town I live in didn't have a yoga studio at the time, and I was applying to the gym. And they were kind of like ghosting me. Like they were like, oh yeah, like when you get your certificate, like hit us up and you can teach here. And then when I did, they were ghosting me. And I was kind of bummed because I really wanted to get into it. I had all these ideas and I wrote all my classes out and all the stories I was going to tell, blah, blah, blah. And then one day I was driving right through our main street. We just have like two little streets that are our main street. And there's this one really cute brick building that has vines growing all up on the side. And it had a for rent sign in the window. And I was like, stop, that would be the cutest studio. So I parked my car and I like peered in. And I was like, this would be a perfect space. I mean, the space was shit. Like the cement floor was like all bumpy, like it needed a ton of work. But I asked my husband to look up, like get some information on it because he's a real estate agent. And then next thing you know, I'm applying to the space and it had 30 other applicants. And I'm like, no way I'm getting this. Like there's no chance. And I think what I was really craving is just to have the community that I had at all of my other studios.
Yeah.
And I was craving a space to teach and learn. And of course, I thought, like, who the hell do I think I am? Not even having taught one class yet, but I'm going to open a studio. I mean, at this time, I had practiced for more than 15 years, but of course, there's that voice that comes up still. But so there was that voice, but then there was a way deeper voice that was like, you need to do this. Like, you absolutely need to do it. And I knew, or at least I thought, studios don't make a lot of money. I was a ghostwriter at the time. I was like, I'll just hustle my ass off and I will do my ghostwriting position. I had social media jobs on the side. I'm like already working like 50 hours a week, but I'm like, I'm going to open a studio. And anyway, so I got chosen out of the 30 applicants. And I opened the studio. I taught my first class on the first day the studio opened to like 25 people. It's actually like crazy to think about. But that studio, it's the first one in our town. We have an incredible community now. That's where I learned how to teach. Like I learned how to support students. The students teach me way more than I teach them. And yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of how it all came to be. And then now we do retreats. So a blessing and also the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah. What an amazing story. And I love how you said that there was a voice that was much more intense or louder than all of the other voices being like, what the heck? How are we doing this? How did you continue to push through and think like, okay, we have this first hurdle, getting the space. I have this space. What are we going to do with this space? How am I going to get people in the door? Like, what was your mindset going through all of those levels of opening a business?
Just one step at a time. Like it's that story of the boy, the horse, the fox, and the mole or whatever. You know what I'm talking
Tell it.
about.
Tell it, storyteller.
Okay. Okay, so the boy and the horse are in the woods, and the boy says to the horse, I can't see a way through. And the horse says to the boy, well, can you see the first step? And the boy says yes. And the horse says, okay, well, then just take that. And that's literally what I just kept saying to myself the whole time, like, just take the next step, just take the next step. But I think the main thing that I do, and honestly, the main thing that I owe the success to,
Yeah.
even from getting the space, is I would journal like what I'm visualizing, how it would feel if I had the space, how it would feel when I would open the door, how would it feel when I'm dying and teaching 6 classes a day, like all of like the best and the worst.
Yeah.
So I would write that all in my journal. And then I actually did this walk this morning. So, like I told you, where I am right now is I'm at my in-laws' house
Yeah.
on a dirt road. And like we live like a mile and a half up the road.
Okay.
I would put my headphones on and I was doing To Be Magnetic at the time. Do you know what that is?
No.
To Be Magnetic is it's like a neural manifestation app, I
Cool.
guess. And so she has these hypnosis tracks and basically like you reset your nervous system and then she puts you in hypnosis and you basically visualize whatever it is that you want to manifest.
Cool.
And so I put my headphones on and I would do the track and I would walk. And I prefer it much more than laying down and doing it.
Yeah.
Visualize getting the call from my landlord and answering the phone and her saying that I got the space. And then I would visualize like how I would open it, what the sign would look like, what the smells would be, the people that would come in, like what kind of workshops we're having, events, classes, blah, blah, blah. And it was after I did one of those, like I literally got home, took my headphones off, and my landlord called me and said that I got it, like after I just done it. So I owe a lot of it to that. I mean, of course, there's like the practical stuff where you have to get the LLC, you have to get all of the shit from city council and blah, blah, blah. So you have to do that. But even more than that, I think what's really helped me is that process of visualization and writing it down and feeling it happening in my body and trusting that I'm supported in all of it.
That is so cool. I love stories like that.
For the newspaper too. Like,
Yeah.
I do it for everything I did. I do, but like, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about the newspaper whenever, but like, I would visualize myself opening the first box and like smelling the papers, feeling them, and it's powerful. I have to send you TBM after.
Yes, please.
Would love
Sure, everyone listening will want it, so I'll have to link it in the show notes. Obviously, your visualizations came to fruition. What are some of your biggest lessons from opening your studio and being a business owner for the first time?
Number one lesson is do not be afraid of failure. That was going into it, I was like, I do not want to fail. Like, I don't want to make any mistakes. And I was actually interviewing someone the other day for the newspaper, and I asked him like what his view of perceived failure was. And he said, well, I tell my kids this, you either win or you learn. And that really hit me because every single day, failure, every perceived failure every single day, but I learned every single day. So it would be to embrace failure because that's the biggest teacher for me.
Yeah.
And then the other one would be, so for the first 9 months of the studio, I had a full-time ghostwriting position, uh, cosplaying as a mom of 4 kids and a doctor and writing about women's health and stuff.
Cool.
And like I said, I had other jobs and I was not letting them go. I was burning out. I'm teaching 12 to 15 classes a week. I am working 40 plus hours a week with my other jobs, and it got me really sick. Like my adrenals and you'll get this, but I did a saliva test because I'm like a zombie walking around, like barely getting through.
Yeah.
And I did a saliva test because apparently like blood tests, I don't know if like what your thoughts on this are, but like they don't show you like what's actually able to assimilate or be used or whatever, but a saliva test will show you that. And so my adrenals were not making the amount of adrenal hormones that a 100-year-old is supposed to make.
Damn.
like absolutely fried. And so that was a huge wake up call for me because that impacts your female hormones and like, I want to be a mom one day. So like it's all this huge ripple effect. And it's because I was pushing myself so hard and not letting myself let go of like this other job that I didn't need. And I kept saying like, oh, I can quit it in a month. And then I would keep it because I would be scared. I like having that scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
So the first thing is like don't be afraid of failure, embrace that. And then my second is take care of yourself, like first and foremost, because you're not going to be able to take care of other people. And like the whole thing about the studio is like I want this to feel like a safe space for them. I want them to feel replenished when they walk through the door and when they leave. And I was not showing up as that. Like what's the saying? Practice what you preach. Practice what you preach. Yeah.
I can't even imagine you being a zombie because I've always known you as like the most energetic, happy person. So I'm glad that you took the time to have that wake up call and assess what's going on. And did you do a Dutch test?
I think it was like it comes to you and then you spit like during different times of the day. You like
Yeah.
spit
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
It must have been. It must have been. It
Cool.
was and this was like a couple months before my wedding. Like I had got all this like horrible information back and I was like, I need to like hard stop and like make a major switch or else like, I mean, I don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah. Good for you for listening to your body to even get the test. And then when you got the results, being like, okay, we need to make changes. And so, aside from just cutting back and letting go of these other jobs so you could be fully present in the studio, what other adjustments did you make to support your adrenals?
Oh, nettles infusions.
Oh, I love that.
I do nettle infusion every day now. Nettle is like I did herbalism school for a year, but then I opened the studio and I was like, I need to at least cut one thing out. So
Yeah,
I did herbalism school for a year and my teacher, I love the way she described it. She's like, drinking nettles is like drinking the tip milk of the earth because you drink it and your body's just flooded with all of these nutrients because it's a nourishing herb.
yeah,
And that's like what my body's craving right now is just it needs to feel safe. Like it's a root chakra herb, so
yeah.
feel safe and grounded and like you need that first before working on anything else. So nettles for sure for me. I don't do any like of the adrenal cocktail or anything like that, but maybe I should. I guess coconut water. Oh, I like Voo breath.
Oh, okay. Tell us, tell us.
So, oh my God, I regret saying that already because I don't want. So it's like this silly breath, and I teach it in class too, but basically you put your palm on your belly and then your hand on your chest, take a big breath in, and on your breath out, you say the word voo. It's like
Okay.
voo, so that it vibrates. It helps your vagus nerve and it vibrates through like your whole body. I find that like just 3 rounds of that really help me calm down, like if I'm in a really stressed out state.
Yeah.
So I mean, don't underestimate the power of 3 breaths. I swear, it's like magic.
No, it's so true. And I think a big barrier for people is that it makes them like uncomfortable if they are like stimulating the vagus nerve and humming or doing anything like that. I know when people cue it in yoga classes that I take, and I'm a teacher and I know the benefits of vagus nerve stimulation, I'm still like, am I really about to like hump right now? Like,
Yeah.
am I going to make these sounds that come out of my mouth? And every time I do it, though, it does feel like such a good release. So thanks for sharing that. I just, anytime anybody mentions their story and something that they did to support, that's listeners always want to know. What are some tips? Because I think a lot of people are burning both ends of the candle and could use some support for the adrenals. So I'm glad that you brought up nettles as well as the breathwork practice. And then, the biggest thing is identifying the root cause. Like what is making you burn out?
Yeah, totally. I mean, and I feel like I'm all for simple things. Like I don't need some crazy recipe for reversing adrenal fatigue or like whatever it is. That's only going to overwhelm you more. Like sleep, tea, and a couple deep breaths. Like if that has a little bit of an impact, then you're gonna stick with it rather than something that like can overwhelm you more and then burn you out more. It's just silly.
Totally, 100%. So at what point, now that you are a studio owner, were you like, time to take on a second business venture?
Um, yeah, I actually already had a second business
Okay.
at the time. It was called Roots and Wings. It was retreats and resources for teen girls that I had started with someone who would come to the studio a lot. And we had retreats for teen girls and they were amazing.
Yeah.
But okay, so I guess what happened is June came around last year, so 1 year ago,
Yeah.
and I was never quitting the job, but I would say next month, next month, next month, and I would never quit. And then literally the universe was just like, you're not going to have this job anymore. They dissolved the company out of nowhere.
Wow.
That's actually how I stopped having my full-time job. And then as soon as they dissolved the company, I was like, oh, I have all of this free space and time to rest and nourish myself. Why don't I do the newspaper now? So
Yeah.
that's how I started the newspaper, which wasn't, I mean, looking back, it's like I'm so happy I started it then, but it also is a lot of work. It was just taking on a whole nother second job.
Yeah.
But so at one point I had three of these things going, and I remember talking to the editor of the newspaper and just saying to her, like, I'm juggling right now, like three things, and all I want to do is put one on the shelf, break one on the ground, and then hold one really close to me. And I just feel like I wasn't able to focus on the one that I really wanted to focus on, which is the newspaper. Because what I learned from having the yoga studio is I love teaching and I love leading workshops and events and theming and planning classes. But the business side of things was really challenging for me. And of course, you're always going to have the stuff that you don't want to do in the business, like the newspaper side of the business. It's difficult, but it's worth it for me. The owning the yoga studio, so much work. A lot of the things I just didn't want to do. A lot of the things I didn't feel like I was good at and didn't want to put my time and energy into. Like you have to wear so many hats when you own a small business.
Yeah.
And I think that I had this glamorous idea of having a yoga studio that I was like, gonna love to do all of the marketing, gonna love to be a boss. No, that's so hard for me. Like I am such a little bitch if I'm like, oh, I need you to sweep. Never mind, I'll do it myself. Like I'm not like great at that. So I realized I need to let go of the ego part of owning the studio because this was really like something like, should I keep it and try and run it from a different city? Because we're moving.
Yeah.
Then I just said to myself, well, this is like my ego talking because I like being the girl in town who owns the yoga studio. I like being the owner of the studio. I like walking in and doing whatever I want and like not having to report to anybody. And then I just thought to myself, well, that's not serving the community at all. My time and efforts would be much better if they're focused on teaching and teaching the best class that I can and supporting the students in the best way. And so that was a big wake up call for me is like, as soon as I realized, I was like, oh no, this is just because I like being called the owner.
Yeah.
Hold on to it. And if that's the reason I'm holding on to something, that's stupid.
Yeah.
So yeah, was that an answer to your question? I don't even remember what you were saying.
Yes, no, it was perfect. And I just am really inspired by you because I think a lot of people hold on to these titles for so long because it is their identity in a sense, and it's really hard to let those things go. And so I just really appreciate you walking through your mindset and really acknowledging that just because your ego likes something is not a reason to stay and to focus your attention to what is really going to make you truly feel happy and fulfilled, which is, it seems like, the newspaper.
Mhm.
So, how did you get that off the ground? I know that you did a really good job of like personal marketing. Thank you so much for sending me the newspaper. I gave, because you sent me a few copies, gave them to my friends. I was like, this is so cool. So I know you did some like grassroots sending to people, but how else did you get the newspaper off the ground? Because that's no easy feat in today's social media addiction.
And that's like the whole reason why I started it, is because I love Instagram. I love it. I love it. I love it because I get so inspired on it. But then there's the other side of me which feels like so icky. And I sometimes fall into like a scroll hole of something that doesn't make me feel good or inspired or whatever, whatever. So I really started it because I wanted to disconnect from the phone, but still feel inspired and still connect with people who are expanders, who like show me what's possible, and then also connect with myself, because the newspaper has like practices and journal prompts and everything in it.
Yeah.
So I the June issue was the first one, so we're on a year now. And I wrote the entire thing myself in 2 weeks. So after I lost my job, I just like put all of my attention on creating the very first one.
Yeah.
It was so hard to find somewhere that would print newspapers.
Wow.
I called like a bunch of like printing places like locally, and they were like, what the hell? Like doing this, and then of course, and you'd have to send it to a bunch of people. And so I think it's always helpful talking to people who do something similar to you or similar to what you want to do, to get advice or to just feel like, okay, if they can do it, then I can do it. So I connected with someone who owns a, I don't know what you would call it, like a regional franchise of Spiritual Awakening. Do you know like that magazine that's in a bunch of yoga studios?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So I talked to him who owned the one in Atlanta, and I was like, I have this idea. I'm going to do like a wellness and spirituality newspaper that's going to be mailed to everybody monthly and blah, blah, blah. And he thought it was really silly, as did every single person I told. He thought, and it was interesting because I thought he was going to be like, oh, yeah, for sure, because he does a print thing. And
Right.
he said, you should just try to do something online. Like everybody wants online things these days. And I remember not even being fazed by that, or like even like it hurt, like hurting my drive to do it. It just almost made me want to do it more. I was like, no, like people my age, like we need this, like we want it. So I eventually ended up finding this place in France that prints newspapers, and they mail them all over the world, which at first I felt a little bit silly doing, because my goal was to have 10 people that I didn't know sign up for the first issue,
Yeah.
which sounds silly, but imagine 10 people being in a room with you, listening to what you have to say, or like connecting with themselves. Like it's just like teaching a class. And so that felt big for me. So my goal was to have 10 people. And so it felt silly getting the place from France, but now we're in 12 countries. So it's nice to have the company in France. I sent them out to people like you who love wellness, love spirituality, obviously for free, just to get them maybe interested or talking about it, and then to be able to interview them in the future.
Yeah.
It blew up very quickly, like out of my mind. I was so surprised because this one, actually, I'm wearing one of their dresses, Christy Dawn.
Well,
You know who that is?
no.
It's it's this woman named Christy, and she owns a regenerative clothing company. So basically, yeah, the cotton, their farms grow cotton that sequesters carbon into the earth. And
Cool.
I was always obsessed with her. She was a major expander for me in the mom realm, the way that she raised her kids, the way that she lives, like all of the things. She was just really magnetic for me.
Yeah.
And this one girl I followed, I think I was just on someone's Instagram, and you know how people like repost stories that other people post. And I had just gone to this other girl, and then I'd followed her. And then I guess she looked at my profile. And then like a week later, I was scrolling through her carousel, and there was a photo of me and my husband on like a motorcycle ride. I'd take on like a shadow picture or something.
Yeah.
And the caption for her carousel was like, inspo or something like that. And I was like, what? Like this girl that's inspiring me just like put up this picture, blah, blah, blah. So I reached out to her and said, hey, like I started this print newspaper thing. Like I'd love to send you a copy. And
Yeah.
I sent her a copy. And when she posted about it, Christy found out about it. And then I sent one to Christy. And then from there, it just blew up because she has a lot of loyal followers. And that's something I'll say is like, I've had very I guess popular people on Instagram. I've interviewed them as the muse or the main interviewee of the issue,
Yeah.
who have hundreds of thousands of followers. And you'd be surprised to learn that the people with the lower amount of followers have a loyaler community, a
Yeah,
more loyal, and because I give everybody a little code, and so I can see like whose followers are really engaging with them, and you would be so shocked to be like, oh, the person with 400K isn't getting that many people to support them in this. And that's not to say that they're not amazing in all of the things,
totally.
but that was just really interesting for me because I think all of us now are concerned with the number of followers we have on our Instagram. And I just started an Instagram for the paper in January.
Yeah.
It doesn't even, like, you would look at that and be like, oh, this is just, it's kind of nothing. But the Instagram doesn't even tell like what the business is actually doing,
Yeah.
which I think can give people hope. It's like you don't need to have this crazy amount of followers. And really, do you even want to? Because then all of this other noise comes in. People who maybe aren't supportive of you, or like the engagement's not there, and it's kind of just like a slide, and like you want to create a community space there. So
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so I guess that's how the newspaper kind of got started, and how it grew was because of Gabby and Christy, who are both muses in the newspaper last year. But yeah, I would say naturally and beautifully, magically, because I would be like, oh my God, I really want to have this person as an interview. And I'd be like, it's impossible to get them, but I write them down in my journal. Next thing I know, they would follow the newspaper. So I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna shoot my shot. I'm gonna DM them after they follow me and say, hey, I'd love to interview you. And so that's kind of how it's came to be. Yeah, I haven't put too much focus on marketing or anything crazy like that, which I'm excited to kind of dive into a bit more once the studio sales finalized, because I have never put my attention on just one thing. Like, I'm always like the crazy person that needs to be doing like 10 things at once, and that's not who I want to be anymore. So I'm excited to lean into it a little bit more deeply and closely.
I'm resonating hard, and I feel like I needed to have this conversation with you at this time because that has also been me. And I'm currently in a like restructure of my whole life. So I think at the start of this conversation, I don't think we were recording yet. And you were like, oh my gosh, how are you teaching so many yoga classes? And I was like, I'm about to be teaching 2 a week. And so I don't know, I just feel like this is perfect timing to have this conversation with you because I'm trying to not be the crazy person pulled in 30 different directions and be a lot more intentional with my time.
Yeah, boundary setting is like a huge thing. And also nettles, fun fact about nettles, or like the spirit of nettles is, you know how like they're really prickly
Yeah,
and real,
totally.
um nettles helps you to set boundaries. So like the more you work with it and drink it on a daily basis, you may find that you more easily like say no, or like that you stick up for yourself and that you feel rooted in your truth and not kind of going in every single direction. So it might be a cool plant for you to work with.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Do you have a specific brand or are you growing it? How are you nettling?
So nettles is a wild weed, so you can find it in springtime, I think mostly everywhere. So
Yeah.
like a nourishing herb basically means that it's wildly available and that it's safe for everybody. I get mine from Mountain Rose Herbs.
Oh, yeah. I love
It's
that.
a big bulk pack, and what I'll do is I'll take about a handful, like a palm size of it, and I'll put it in a 32-ounce mason jar overnight, and then I'll fill the jar with sometimes warm water or even cold water, because nettles is drying. So if you put like really hot water on it, it might be a little bit drying. But
Yeah.
and then I drink it throughout the day. Like the next day I'll wake up and I'll strain it and I'll just drink it throughout the day. And it makes you feel so good. Like it gives you a grounded energy, and it just feels like you're just flooding your body with all of these crazy nutrients. It's really good for hair growth, really good for nail growth. Got a ton of B vitamins, really supportive to the blood building. Yeah, it's a one of my favorite allies for sure.
Yeah, it's a good one. I've been trying to get my fiance to drink it for his allergies.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
So maybe we just both need to start doing it. Because if I do it, he'll do it. So
The best way is not tell somebody to do it, but to show them that you do it or
yep,
whatever. Yeah.
100%. So from the newspaper, it's so cool that it's been able to take off from word of mouth and using connections and you putting yourself out there. What are some of the biggest benefits of being present and getting this information from a physical newspaper that you've seen from your followers, from yourself?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, the emails and the DMs I get from people about how the newspaper has impacted them is wild. And I feel so grateful that people, and I think it's because I'm so vulnerable in the paper. Like, I tell some pretty vulnerable stories in the newspaper. And I think that maybe that's why they're able to be so vulnerable with me about things. But probably the one that I see most would just be that they feel more connected with themselves and they feel more inspired without feeling less than. So it really is to me like going on Instagram, it's like the best of everything on there. Like it's the people that you really want to hear from, but without the kind of mask, because it's not just all the best of them, it's all of like the worst of them, and I'm doing air quotes, the worst of them as well, and it just feels more real. And then from that space, they feel more compassion for themselves and they're taking time to sit with themselves. Usually it's like outside or in like the comfiest place in your home with like a really good drink. It's like taking care of you
Yeah,
instead of sitting hunched over on your phone, just like scrolling, killing your eyes with blue light. Yeah, just this really safe and nourishing space and time that it allows for themselves. Like I had someone email me yesterday and just say that like they basically sip on it throughout the entire month.
cool.
Like they're always going back to it, like they keep it with them in their bag or whatever it is. And there's journal prompts every month that I think really help ground you into the season and set intentions with yourself and uphold to that. Because another one of the really nice things about the paper is that you can cut it out and you can put it on your fridge. You can keep it top of mind. You can mail something to like one of your friends, which is I think is so sweet. I people do that, which I really love. Yeah, I think it's just that reconnection that you have with yourself and what you really want to be doing and how you really want to be living and how present you want to be, um, that I think has been the most profound.
That's really cool. And how special to get to be able to facilitate those conversations or the conversations that you don't even know about that people are having with themselves or with family members and fostering that community. Would you say in 12 different countries? Like that
Yeah.
is so cool.
One of actually some girl emailed me a couple weeks ago, and for the February issue, each issue has a theme. So the theme is inspired by the muse or the main interview of the issue, and then from there, other articles, practices, prompts, recipes kind of weave together to create the larger fabric of the theme.
Yeah.
And so the theme for February was connection, and the main interview was Tanya Papanikolov, who's the founder of Rainbow Mushrooms,
Yeah.
the mushroom tinctures. And so her theme was connection. And in there was another interview with this woman named Alexandra Clark, who's an astrocartographer, which is basically like the cosmic Google Maps of like, oh, if this planet goes through this area on your map, like this might be a good place to dive more deeply into what you want to do in your career, or this might be a good place to travel with your partner if you want to like spice up romance or something.
Yeah.
And so this woman emailed me and said that her and her husband had just bought land in Washington after talking to Alexandra Clark to start a retreat center because they both had this really good line through that area right there. And I just thought that was so cool. I just thought that was so cool. A ton of people ended up reaching out to her to do one-on-ones with her for her to read their maps. And I think it's just lifting up people who I think are so cool and badass
Yeah.
and showing all of the community like, look at her, look at him, like they are doing this. You can do like what you're supposed to do too. They're living their dharma. Like, what is your purpose? Can you connect with that as you're being inspired reading this, and can you feel inspired and know that like you're capable as well?
I'm feeling inspired. So that's really cool. It's really cool. And what a fun story to know that you've had such a profound impact on people by just sharing the people you're inspired by and being vulnerable. Like that is a huge milestone in their life to buy land and start something. That's huge.
It is so, it's so big. It's so big. I was
Yeah.
like happy dancing for them because like that's so exciting. Like that's what they always wanted to do and they're doing it together. And I mean, I think it's also so cool that her and her husband, because you can do readings with not, I don't know if they're called readings, but you can do sessions with your partner so that she can read both y'all. So like if you're thinking of doing a move or something, she can help you with that. And I think it's cool. And Kath, I see this with you and Luke. Like he's into doing the funky and the weird with you. And that's so beautiful. And I think more people need to see partners like doing the funky and the weird and working on themselves together and like evolving and growing. And I think it's really special when people share that because then you're like, oh, well, if they can have a partner that wants to do this with them too, like I can meet my person that wants to do that, if that's what they.
Oh, trust me, I get all the time how lucky I am to have somebody who will do whatever crazy idea I have. And
Yeah.
I noticed in your kind of love letter to your studio how you emphasize how much your husband helped you build that from the ground up and was there for you. So right back at you. Really cool to have
Yeah, we got good ones.
that. We did. I can't believe we've already been chatting for 45 plus minutes. Want to make sure that we get to promote all the exciting things that you're doing that you have coming up and how people can find the newspaper. So we'd love for you to promote your stuff. Tell us how they can get to you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, let's see. Well, we have this new section in the newspaper that we just launched this month called Classifieds, which is like the take on the traditional newspapers ad section.
Cool.
And so basically, if you're a subscriber, you get a discount, but if you're not a subscriber, you can still share your offerings and your seekings there. But basically, it's for creatives and healers and people who want to make friends and people who want to go on vacation to post on the page so that you can share your offerings and your seekings with a community who's not going to be distracted on Instagram, who's going to be sitting with the paper, and they're going to know that it's a loyal community of people who are like-hearted and interested in the same things. So like just for example, we have a lot of online healers promoting their offerings. We have people talking about like, oh, I need a subletter. And then because that's going to be, that the community is good. People who are looking for trades, like vacation trades, like come and stay in my house and like I'll come and stay in your house in Europe. Like I'm looking for some kind of thing like that. And
Yeah.
since we're local, I think that that's a really fun thing to do.
So
Uh,
cool.
yeah, just different services, offerings, things like that. And I'm really excited about it because I feel like the next branch of the newspaper is more community and more friends. And how can you connect with the people who are in the retreat community beyond just, connecting with yourself over some good coffee on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and so then the other half of the retreat beyond the newspaper is in-person getaways.
Cool.
So it's retreats. We just did our first in Guatemala and we're leading one in Costa Rica next March. So there's a few spots. I don't want to say anything and then they get swooped up, but
Yeah.
go look on the retreatbycarley.com at the retreats. We're going to Costa Rica next March for a week and it's called the Reclamation Retreat. So it's like reclaiming your creativity, play, all of these different things. And we have an art therapist coming with us who will lead a lot of art workshops. And then we have a traditional Chinese medicine healer, Reiki healer, an acupuncturist coming. So we'll do a bunch of different workshops and then also just fun things because like play is the best medicine.
Totally.
Uh, so it's basically like a done for you vacation and transformation in one is how I like to kind of share about it. So yeah. And then the newspaper you can find at the retreatbycarley.com/newspaper. You can find information about the classifieds, ads there. And I think that that's it.
Yay. Oh, so cool. I love that you're doing in-person retreats and that you're bringing in so many different types of people. That's amazing. I volunteered at a women's group home and they had an art therapist come once a month, and they were my favorite nights of the week. It's amazing what you're able to let out or express when you have the space and the time and are able to play. And I mean, I also love acupuncture and Reiki and all those things. So, what a fun space. What is one piece of advice you would give your younger self?
Oh my God, if I could talk to my younger self, I would literally like trap her and talk to her for an entire day. Okay, one piece. Let's see. Oh my God, I might need to do more than one. Okay,
Fine.
the first one would be stop outsourcing your intuition. I feel like we are constantly like, and I mean, I don't mean to generalize, but like I feel like I am constantly like, I knew that was gonna happen, or like I should have trusted my gut, or like whatever it is. And I still do it to this day, but like I'm more in tune with myself and my intuition. And I feel like I was always outsourcing it when I was younger. I was always needing to ask somebody's advice or like, what do you think about this before I did anything? And like another thing is stop asking for advice from people who are not in a place that you want to be in.
Totally.
And that for me, yeah, that's huge. Trusting myself and trusting my inner knowing. And then also, I would say, again, embrace failure. And then I would tell her the story about the poor farmer and his son, the old soupy tale.
Oh, I love that one.
So
It's so good. Well, thank you so much for being here. I have been really excited to have this conversation. I was looking at our text and we had a kind of a similar chat like this in 2019. So I don't know how we've gone
good.
5 years without, yeah,
Oh
without
my
sitting down and catching up. So it was just really fun and learning new things. I mean, we went to the same high school, but I had no idea that you were doing yoga then. So
God.
it's always fun to catch up and have this time and space with you. And I know that you shared your website, but just one more time for people to get in touch with you. Would love to share your Instagram, the website, the whole nine.
Okay, so my Instagram is at the retreat dot by Carley, Carley, and then the website is the retreat by Carley.com. I think that's it. Kath, thank you so much for having me. Like this was a really sweet spot in my day, and I'm so grateful for you, and I'm really proud of you. You killed, like, you're a natural. As you're natural. And I have to just say one thing because I was thinking about this today is like I'm pretty sure like growing up with you and going over to your house and your mom having all of like the organic things and you not having like fragrance in the shampoos and stuff like that was kind of my portal into the world of health and wellness. So say hi to your mom. Thank your mom for me and thank you for having me. I'm really grateful to spend this time with you.
That's so sweet. She's gonna love hearing that. And yeah, it's so fun that we've been able to grow up together and find each other again after going off and doing our thing for so many years and to be like so aligned and just know exactly what you're talking about with the herbs and the yoga and spirituality. Like it's just cool. It's fun.
Yeah, yeah, for
Okay,
sure. Can't wait to keep following you and see all the amazing things you do.
I got you, girl.